Senator Gedeon.
Thank you, Madam President. And I want to join in the collective congratulating of the West Indies female team in St. Lucia, their performance, and also the unwavering support they received from the St. Lucian public, coming and stir them up and giving them the enthusiasm and the courage to fight and to be victorious. Madam President, it is always, for me, heartbreaking and very fearful when we sit here, and the matters we discussed mostly, I must say mostly, is that of borrowing monies to undertake seemingly, for me, projects that are coming in from the sky. Because when you read in the estimates, it is true we have monies concerning consultancy. Monies have been borrowed for consultancy projects, and at the end of it, when you follow, the question always comes to mind: why so much money? Why we come to this house and every time we borrow money, we have a chunk of it going to consultancies? I am afraid, because of the warnings of the IMF, warnings of the central bank, telling us, as my dear colleague said a while ago, that we need to be very careful with the amount of borrowing that as a government we plunge ourselves into. Because it is not us that will be faced with the responsibility of going out and work to repay. It's going to be my child, your child, and their children that will be faced with the problem of paying taxes to repay such debt. Now, are we already, even before these children go into the field of work, are we already burdening them with so much responsibility? I had a rough calculation, Madam President, and surprising to me that for this year, quite a lot of borrowing has been done. Apart from what was in the budget, the 738 million plus, we have added burdens, added debt burdens. We have 150 million, which will be coming soon, as they say, for the airport project. Again, we had the Minister of Economic Affairs saying that his government, his Prime Minister was so good that they were able to get an extra 50 million. When we total, we have pretty close to, in 1 year, pretty close to, or even more, $1.5 billion being borrowed. And I still think there is more to come. Madam President, as my dear colleague said a while ago, the very same questions I had in mind. In 6 weeks, we are borrowing for just 6 weeks in US $4.9 million for consultancy. If you want to put it in local terms, as they said, pretty close to 11 or $13 million for just 6 weeks of consultancy. If you put that by a week, you have almost $2 million a week for consultancy. As I said, and I'm going to say that I have every faith in the public service. I believe in the work of the public service. Though, as a teacher, I prided myself in the work that I did. But let us put all jokes aside, Madam President. $13 million, 6 weeks. I have a simple question. How many St. Lucians would benefit from this? How many St. Lucians literally would benefit from this 13 million EC dollars? I think that more serious thought should be given, especially when it comes to borrowing money. At this point in time, at this present point in time, borrowing $13 million, and we have a 6-week seminar. Anybody would expect substantial, clear undertakings thereafter. If I'm going to spend $13 million to trade, I would expect that those persons, the trainees, would, at the end of the day, put into practice whatever they have learned to meet the ends or the objectives that the government so planned, or I so planned. Because, you see, Madam President, it is not our money. It is not my money that I'm spending. I'm spending the government's money, and I'm thinking that if I'm spending it, it was well thought of. We sat and we agreed that this is what is needed at this point in time, and not anything to do with, let me say, healthcare in a situation that needs to be addressed. Education is in crisis. It needs to be addressed. The crime situation in St. Lucia needs to be addressed. I am saying, from this workshop, will these situations be addressed? Are we going to see, or I'm hoping we see, a turnaround in these three areas that I've mentioned. I'm hoping that we see a turnaround. Because it is, for me, like, you know, I chose you to represent me, and therefore, because I chose you to represent me, I don't really need to come to you in critical matters like health, like education, like crime fighting, and sit and discuss. Those persons who are involved I think should be the ones to sit. Let us discuss. Let us see what is wrong, like we had the crime symposium. Let us see how we can tackle, and let us put our actions or our ideas into play, and let us see how and when these things would be solved. A Malaysian company suggested by the loaner agency to go in and help us solve our problem, in how we could better do our work as public servants to mitigate and help solve the problems that are existing today in our society. I don't know how the Malaysian gentleman would be able to relate locally to his knowledge and see that what ideas he could put in place for the solution. I don't know. So my concern, Madam Speaker, is basically that I think that this government is very rash in plunging our country further into debt. And I think that they should stop, take a look, and see what is it that they are doing to St. Lucia and have a rethink. Better things can be done. And as my colleague said, at this point in time, whilst that may have been an important item, it may have been, but at this point in time, with the situation in St. Lucia, I don't think adding 13 million more to the debt burden is an appropriate thing. I don't think it is at this point, at this present moment where we are, with the IMF asking us to try their best to return that debt to GDP, which they claim they would have to that 60% thereabout, so that we would have been able to manage and do the things that we want to do. Are they taking these things into consideration? Do they consider this? Do they consider the words of the IMF? Or do they only consider what they think is relevant to them and what they are doing? Or is it a case where, you know, this agency decides, I could give you the money to do it, but whether or not I have to source for you the persons to do it, or whether if you want this money, this is the firm that we know that is best in that particular field, that you take it, implement, and then let us see how it goes on after. I think, Madam Speaker, Madam President, that if we need to take St. Lucia out and talk about economy growing by 2.3 or 2 point whatever, and this year by 3.4 or whatever, the decisions that we make, the decisions we are making and we are taking today, are they on par with that growth level that was spoken of by the IMF? Are they on par? Because the leader of government basis, not too long ago, I heard him responding to that question, a question similar to that. And if I'm not correct in what I'm saying, he's right there and he could stop. And his response was, the projected 3.4 may not actually happen because of, one, the projects that were to be implemented, some of them have not been. He spoke about the implementation of the work of the Sandals, the new Sandals Lassus. Yeah, he spoke about that. He said that this project was stopped, and therefore it is possible, and others that he mentioned, it's possible that we may not achieve the 3.4 projected growth. Now, if we are not, why do we still continue to go on and add more debt to the country? Why? Ouais, délai, c'est pas nous qui nous pour prendre responsabilité pour certains bagailles. Les faits, nous pas mêler. Nous qu'à faire anyway. Mais qualité dette ça là, nous qu'à tuer à dedans là, Madam Speaker, Madam President. Ça c'est plus de travail pour l'autre génération qui va venir pour représenter cette lycée. Ça c'est plus de travail pour eux actuellement. Parce que c'est eux qui nous pour nettoyer dette ça. Délai moins pour nous repartir, nous reposer dans le coin et nous à mort. Et c'est eux qui nous pour venir après pour payer dette ça. So, pour moi c'est that gouvernement supposé catcher les timètres plis et pas intuimer les pays à d'autres dettes. Je t'ai blâmé privé gouvernement avant. Donc, je t'ai apporté autant d'argent. Et que je suis venu, je dis, et ce n'est pas moi qui a dit, mon dog qui a dit, that trop l'argent qu'a tapé quoi il prêté. Je dis, trop l'argent. Trop l'argent. Et si nous avons prêté autant, qui ça qui a fait pour l'autre temps pour venir? Qui ça nous a quitté pour l'autre année? Et l'année après, c'est plus qui a prêté? Oh, nous avons une position côté, nous avons profité tellement que nous avons bout. Et dit, ok, oui, nous avons rien de bout, nous avons payé tout ça, nous avons payé, et nous avons prêté. We are a thriving economy, small, thriving economy. And I think those persons who are responsible should think a little more, should be a little more understanding, and at least, if not, at least, give St. Lucians a voice to say, yes, gouvernement ça, c'est lui qui a fait le travail là, nous brisons nous. C'est lui qui a fait. Mais santé nous, qu'a venir bien. Mais éducation en bon chemin. Mais crime, nous te parlé à bord, nous avons baissé, nous avons fait, il a baissé, et qui bon contrôlé. Et nous avons un bon côté. But today, are we in a good place? Is St. Lucia in a good place financially? Is it? In closing, I repeat, Madam President, that adding to the debt burden of St. Lucia is not a positive sign of any good governance. If you are adding to the debt burden, it is no good sign that the country has been governed in a manner that would save it tomorrow. Thank you very much.